All right, apologies for that music, but I will turn it over to Ananya and we will go ahead and begin our next section of the forum.
So welcome back from the break. Hope you all are relaxed now and super excited for our next panel, Stacy Kimmel in conversation with Jim Pantaleo. Our moderator, Jim, is an indoor vertical farming expert based in Southern California and the content chair for Indoor AgCon. He has previously worked at Oasis Biotech and helped develop biopharma and seed trials engagement with Bayer. Mr. Pantaleo is the former general manager of the landmark indoor vertical farm, Urban Produce, a large-scale commercial indoor vertical farm located in Irvine, CA. As an industry evangelist, he has hosted several international conferences, such as the American Seed Trade Association's annual conference in Orlando, and has written extensively on the subject of indoor vertical farming for the online magazine Urban Ag News. Prior to pursuing a career in indoor agriculture, he spent 20 years in technology and software licensing and 10 years with Hewlett-Packard. Mr. Pantaleo holds a degree in international relations from San Francisco State University. Super excited for the panel. Over to you.
Nanya, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay? You can. All right, wonderful. It's such a huge honor to be with you guys, and I'm going to allow Stacy to introduce herself in a moment. Before I do that, I just want to, again, thank you guys for having me. I'm here in California. The sun is coming in here. It'll be about 70 today. I just looked at your weather. It's 47 balmy degrees in Philly, so enjoy that. But I am so honored to be here, and I owe a special thanks to Mark Oshima, the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of AeroFarms. And again, loved hearing what everybody said today. You know, Rona, Marielle, all you guys, Cole, and Anya, thank you so much. You guys are the future. And that's why it's such an honor for me to be here. It really is. You guys are us. You know, when I look at you, you remind me of me. So, and that was a couple years ago, as you can tell. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stacy Kimmel from AeroFarms, who is the Vice President of Research and Development, and allow her to share a little bit about herself and her work. We'll have a little chat. This is a fireside chat. There's no fire behind me, unfortunately, but we're just going to have a nice, easy chat. And I'm absolutely honored and thankful to you also, Stacy. So by all means, go right ahead.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks so much, everyone, for having me today. I've been listening to the conference since it started, and there's been some excellent discussions. So I really appreciate the opportunity to listen in and then to also participate with you today. So as Jim mentioned, I am the Vice President of Research and Development at AeroFarms, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey to AeroFarms. I have been in the food industry for 23 years. I am a food scientist by training. I have a master's and a PhD in food science. Worked in both kind of a B2B environment, primarily for McCormick and Company for about 8 years. And obviously they're a very critical seller of agricultural products. And then I moved to the Campbell Soup Company, where I work primarily on the business to consumer side of things. And most of my time with Campbell was around the area of new product innovation. So that is really a journey for folks in my profession, from concept to commercialization. So all the way from what is the consumer looking for in new innovation to making it happen in a physical manufacturing facility and getting it to the consumer through whatever retail channels or online channels that they may buy from. So that was a great experience for me as a scientist, because it takes a ton of cross-functional work to actually commercialize a product. So, you know, R&D doesn't exist in a box in any company, including AeroFarms, where I am now. We work very collaboratively. So when you're commercializing product, you work with marketing and sales and operations, supply chain to get any new ingredients you might need, packaging vendors and packaging engineers, equipment vendors. So it's very collaborative effort. And that work that I did has been really key to how I have ended up at AeroFarms, in addition to a couple other things I'm going to mention. But, working as a team is key to how we work at AeroFarms, and for commercialization and any effort in an organization where you're trying to do new things, especially build new technology. It takes a village, and there's a lot of people involved in these kinds of things. So the last few years while I was at Campbell's, I actually spent a lot of time focused on research and technology strategy for Campbell's. And I formed a team that was in charge of scouting and looking at external innovation, and primarily in the entrepreneurial space with startups. So that got me really excited about the intersection of technology and food and sustainability, and all the things that could potentially be done with technology to impact the food system. And I really love this idea, and I decided I wanted to do more of that. And so I started looking for another opportunity, and I landed at AeroFarms in February of 2020. I've been there just about a year now, and it's been a great year for us. We're growing and doing all kinds of amazing things. My team at AeroFarms is made up of mostly plant biologists, molecular biologists, and some food scientists. We are part, as I said, of a larger group of innovators at AeroFarms. There's probably about 50 of us that are all technology innovators in various areas of the company. So it's a great community to be trying to build new technology and think about how you incorporate plant biology and data science and all those kinds of things into how you grow a business and produce products for the consumer that they enjoy and love every time they have them. So that's kind of it about me, I think. I have a couple of interesting little tidbits that about my career and my journey, but I'll save those for maybe another.
Yeah, we'll bring those up. We'll bring those up later, Stacy. But
okay.
Let's just say a little something here for our audience real quickly about indoor vertical farming. So just so everybody knows, AeroFarms and then many of the others that are in this country and the world today that some of you have heard of, it's about growing food in fully controlled environments without any natural sunlight, using only LED technology for photosynthesis. And that really is a key component to indoor farming, along with what we call environmental controls and all of the HVAC and other issues that one needs to be concerned with growing a plant indoors. So having said that, I would recommend, and I know that many of the students out there are taking notes. I am going to be repeating some things so you can write that down. And then of course, I also welcome anyone to reach out and contact me for any of the things that I share today. But having said that, Stacy, can you share a little bit, what you're comfortable with in terms of what is the R&D focus of AeroFarms today, and then as you go forward over, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Sure. I think, we are, like I said, on a journey as we grow our company. And I would say now, and also in the next 3 to 5 years, there's few areas of focus for us that are there now and will likely stay the same. The first one is really about leafy greens. So you see behind me some leafy greens. This is our AeroFarms baby kale. It doesn't look so baby here because it's as big as my head, but this is our baby kale. And we sell a number of products into the retail marketplace, baby leafy greens and microgreens. That's a key component of the R&D focus. As we build new farms, we're going to be commercializing new products and bringing those products to market in other areas of the country versus where we are now, which is in the Northeast area. So related to leafy greens, though, the longer term look is we just continue to innovate in areas that bring value to our consumers and our company. And that includes a lot of different things that you had mentioned, Jim: lighting technology, different controlled environments, temperature, humidity, plant stressors, all kinds of things that we can potentially do, levers that we can pull to think about how we might create unique products for our consumers. And those could look like a lot of different things. They could be different products, or they could be the same product with enhanced nutrition, or maybe a different texture, a different color, a different morphology. There's all kinds of things that you can do since we control everything about the environment that the plant receives in our farm, which is a lot. That's a lot of what we do in R&D. We also have a number of team members that focus on partnerships that are focused on new technology for the future. They could be new plants that we're looking at growing, new types, new areas that we might want to be getting into, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, other things of that nature. And then lastly, for me, as the head of R&D, I think, one of the big things that we need to focus on as we are growing is how do we strengthen our capabilities as a team, as an R&D function in the company. So that includes a lot of different things. First and foremost, we're opening 2 new R&D laboratories. So one will be in Newark, that will open this year. And the other is going to be the world's largest R&D facility, which we will open in Abu Dhabi in 2022, probably late 2021. So we're very excited about all that. As an R&D leader, an R&D professional, like to have all that investment in research by our company is thrilling and exciting for us. And we don't do research for research's sake. We do research to understand how the plants are growing, what they need, and how do we get more and better quality plants to our consumers. So that's very exciting for us. And in addition, my team, it's very important for my team to make sure they're growing as professionals, that we're putting them in front of the best researchers and the best people in the industry to make sure they're keeping up with what's going on out there, so that we are keeping them interested and engaged in their jobs, and then also using that information to grow our company.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I can say from personal knowledge that AeroFarms absolutely hires the best and the brightest. So all of those listening today from Penn and Wharton, really, it is all about multidisciplines. So depending on what you're studying, there are so many places for you. And we've touched upon it today, whether that's, computer science or biology or engineering, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really kind of the focus that I think that a lot of the listeners are looking for. And that leads us into our next question, which is all about relationships with academia. And if I can do a quick plug for myself, I'm on a team here in California with the University of California's Agriculture and Natural Resources Division, which is the group that's responsible for essentially all the UC Ag schools and all the initiatives that go on there. And of course, as many folks could guess, the UC's relationship with farms in California goes back over 100 years, and it's been a huge part of California being as successful in agriculture as they are. So those relationships are super important. Talk a little bit, Stacy, if you can, about the academic collaborations that AeroFarms is involved in, and why those collaborations with academia are so important to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have a number of active projects with different universities. One in partnership with Rutgers University that was funded by FAR, which is the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's been a critical one for us. They're obviously right in our backyard, and we've been doing some work with them. But we're pretty agnostic. What our goal is relative to academic partnerships is to find some of the best and brightest technology so that we can stay ahead of things. And controlled environment ag is pretty new, and there's still a lot of things happening in academia that are useful for us to understand. So we maintain a lot of partnerships to stay as close as possible to the most cutting edge work that's happening in this space. So it's important to us from a knowledge perspective, because knowledge is critical to our ability to grow our company. And we actively participate on boards and as members of a number of associations that are really focused on academics with students. They fund different research in the areas of lighting in particular is very interesting to us. There's a couple of organizations, Glaze and Lamp, that we are active members. There's tons of different academic partners within those organizations that we are close with. And then we use those relationships to get us access to some of the students that are doing research in LED lighting and growing plants in indoor environments. In addition, we also are part of a group called Optima, which focuses on leafy greens in particular and has a lot of different folks involved in it, academics and others. And if you ever want to understand a little bit about indoor ag and you just like to watch YouTube videos, things like that, this organization does a great cafe organized by Sherry Kubota out of Ohio State University. And she has some great speakers on all kinds of different topics related to indoor agriculture. So if you want to just learn a little bit about what's going on in the industry, you'll see some of the best players, both in academia and in industry, present at her cafe. And AeroFarms, interestingly, we love that idea so much that we brought it inside. So every Friday, it's actually happening now, so I'm missing it. We have an AeroFarms cafe. So the R&D team and engineers and anybody who has an interest in just what's going on in technology and indoor ag, we discuss every Friday a research paper, or we have somebody come and talk to us about their latest data that they're collecting, key professors that we have connections with that are doing really amazing things in this space. So, we value that, and we want to be as close to it as possible. And, keeps us on the cutting edge, I'll say.
I love it. Let's do some name dropping. Let's do some shout outs and some name dropping. So Sherry Kubota, absolutely a true leader at Ohio State, previously at the University of Arizona's Controlled Environment Ag Center, or SEAC. Shout out to Director Dr. Murat Kachira and Gene Giacomelli, the former director. Shout outs to all our friends at UC Davis. They're doing great work as well. Rutgers, clearly. Princeton was doing a little bit of work with Dr. Paul Gauthier, who's now across the street at one of your another fellow farms, starting with a B. And so lots of great work being done in academia. I'll say a tiny bit about FAR, and then you take it from there, okay, Stacy? So the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research is a congressionally funded organization that's involved in public-private funding and partnerships. And in this particular case, the initiative, which I was actually involved in when it started with Roger Bulow, the Chief Technology Officer of AeroFarms, which was a convening meeting a few years ago. And it was all about how industry, with the help of FAR, can work towards their goals, address challenges. And in this particular case, it was about everything from the shape of the plant to the moonshot of growing fruiting plants inside of completely controlled environments. Dr. Sally Rocky and Dr. John Reich do fantastic work there. And please share a little bit more, Stacy, about what AeroFarms is doing with FAR.
Sure, absolutely. So we have two key projects with FAR right now. One has been going on for a while. Jim, you may have referred to it a little bit there. And it's been, I think we received that grant from them, I believe in 2017 almost. So, but it's quite a long project for us. It's wrapping up now, and we're taking a hard look at all of the data because there's a lot of it. And it's very interesting for us. But what we were exploring there is really how plant stressors can improve the taste and nutritional aspects of leafy greens. So as I said earlier, there's so many levers that we can pull. And sometimes when a plant is stressed, it might give you a little bit of a different nutrition or other types of things than when it's given everything that it's really happy. And you don't want to stress it too much, but these kinds of things can be very critical and important to us to understand about how we might provide additional benefits with our leafy greens. So that's the one project. And like I said, just wrapping up, Rutgers is a big part of that project. We did a lot of our sensory work and analytical chemistry work. So it was quite a great partnership with them. And they work closely with us on sharing data and coming to conclusions about what we think about what happened with that research. So the second one, which is it's not hot off the press, but pretty close, is the Precision Indoor Plants Consortium. So this is a really big project. It's a 5-year project, and it's a group of 6 companies where AeroFarms is actually the growing company. And there's a lighting company, seed company, controls company, and other companies in this consortium that are all interested in how we can improve and accelerate the development of crops that thrive in controlled environments. So this is really a great way to partner with companies that are key in providing different types of technology and use that technology to grow in our farm to test how some of the things that really might help us get to plants that are designed for controlled environments as opposed to plants that are designed for field farming and are coming inside and being grown in a vertical farm. So there's 3 crops involved in this project. Like I said, it's a long project, about 5 years, led by one of my scientists, Dr. Shanad Gordon, and he has been instrumental in collaborating, coordinating all of these partners and getting a statement of work and experimentational plan together. So we'll be looking at lettuce. That's our big one. That'll be probably the longest. And we'll be looking at tomatoes and also strawberries. So it's very exciting for us. The lettuce project is really about how environmental biological conditions can affect post-harvest browning. So as you know, probably if you're a consumer of lettuce, you might see when you go to buy your romaine lettuce and you let it sit in your refrigerator for a bit, you'll see some pinking, browning on the white areas of that lettuce. There's a biochemical pathway involved in that process. And we are starting to look at how we might develop seeds and other things that could potentially be better and have less post-harvest browning. And that includes looking at genetic markers and other traits that can give us better quality and less browning. So another big aspect of that is speed breeding. So we had a couple of folks earlier today talking about breeding. Breeding indoors can be quite an interesting opportunity. So there's a number of people who've published very great work on using glass houses and growth chambers to grow for the purposes of speed breeding. So we're looking at doing that and accelerating even faster the breeding process indoors, which is a key part of this Precision Indoor Plants Consortium. So we'll be doing that in Newark, and we're also going to be doing it in Abu Dhabi in our new research center. So we're excited about that.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you hit that acronym. So PIP, for those listening, you could Google the Precision Indoor Plants Program, and that's what Stacy's talking about. Very, very cool. So that's a nice segue into my next question, Stacy, which is a little bit about Abu Dhabi. And for full disclosure, it's for me, it's something that's personal because your colleague, Dr. Charlie Wong, has been involved with you. He was my CEO at Oasis Biotech and Sanan Bio. So I have a lot of, I'm rooting for you guys, if you will, in terms of success.
Well, thank you.
Indeed, Dr. Wong will be traveling there soon. And if you could just share a little bit with what you're comfortable with about Abu Dhabi. And if I may also say this very quickly,
sure.
I'm still focused on our students in the audience. Stacy readily admits that she was a food scientist, not a plant scientist. And here she is, knee deep in plants. And so please understand that the pathway to where you get to in life and in indoor vertical farming, in this particular case, may not be a straight line, rather kind of a goat trail up the side of a hill. So I just wanted to say that about your background too, Stacy, but talk a little bit about Abu Dhabi if you can.
Sure, absolutely. So Abu Dhabi, as I mentioned, it's a research center that will be building in the Middle East, and it will be the world's largest R&D indoor vertical farm. So it is being designed exclusively for research purposes. Again, not for research sake, but research to improve, how we might think about some of the really pressing challenges in global food agriculture. So while we have our things in the US that we are thinking about, there's also a lot that's going on globally in agriculture. And this center will allow us to focus more on maybe some more global problems including how do you grow plants in arid climates? How could you use indoor farming to potentially grow local crops because you can control the environment completely? And how do you build farms in a desert and have them help you grow plants? And, for consumption for humans, obviously, but also for maybe for animals and for other purposes. Because as we all know, many countries have to import most of the things that they eat. And this is allowing us to help in some of the spaces where we've got people on this planet that are relying on imports, and we really like to be a little bit more self-sustaining. And this could be one of those ways that could happen. So that's what we'll be doing there. We're going to have a number of laboratories there, and we're going to be hiring a number of local people as well, partnering with universities and companies in the country to really help facilitate the economy there. We'll have an advanced plant biology lab looking at precision phenotyping and machine vision. We'll have a speed breeding center, as I mentioned earlier. We'll use that for the Precision Indoor Plants consortium work, but when we're done with that, we'll have that room and we'll be using it for other purposes. And we'll also be building an analytical chemistry lab there to look at flavor analysis and think about how that might marry up with some of the sensory analysis that we do. And then lastly, I think we had a panel earlier, we'll be looking at robotics and automation and drones, and how those technologies can potentially apply to indoor farming and other applications in farming. So it's very exciting for me. You don't get an opportunity as often to have 2 brand new research centers opening up within a year. The world is my oyster as a scientist, and I'm thrilled to be able to start to get to work in these labs for AeroFarms. So,
absolutely, sounds wonderful. Thank you. So the previous panelist, the former minister from Greece, spoke a little bit about seed breeding. And as you and I both know, there is a movement today with respect to breeding seed for indoor vertical environments in particular, and how that seed may react to LED lights in particular, or liquid nutrients. I'll name drop now. We know that Unfold out here in California, which is a Bayer spinoff, is working towards that end, as is the recent story of another indoor farm called Calera purchasing a seed breeding company called Vindara. And so if you could speak a little bit about how that movement will help you guys to keep consistently delighting your customers in terms of your consistent product and that consistent product quality.
Yeah, I mean, I think we couldn't be happier that we're starting to see even some of the large agricultural players recognize that there's opportunity in indoor ag and particularly in vertical farming. So, there's a lot of companies out there in this space working now, all doing things a little bit differently. We are somewhat agnostic relative to who we partner with because we're looking for the best technology to get us the best seeds. There's a seed, Green Venus is part of the PIP consortium. Benson Hill is part of the PIP consortium. These folks are doing a lot of interesting things, doing it in very different ways, using artificial intelligence and different types of genetic techniques. But we are really looking to find the best technology that we can to bring us seeds that are really designed for use in indoor farms. So you can imagine, as I said, that there's the seeds that we're using now, they were designed for field farming. So they need to be resistant to pests. They need to be able to survive in a drought. Many other things, they typically have a day-night cycle. And they're used to certain types of conditions. And we really will be excited to have seeds that are used to, bred for our environment. So we don't have pests and we don't have drought, and we can use whatever lighting we need to use to make the plant as happy as we can. So those types of things are going to be great for our industry because I think they'll increase the overall quality and yield opportunities that we have, so we can continue to produce more products, better products than you typically see now, which are usually the leafy greens and the lettuce type of products. Who knows what this could bring as far as our ability to grow indoors. So it's very exciting for us.
Absolutely. Super, super exciting. I hope you don't mind if I continue to drop names. I just want our students to learn as much as they possibly can. So given that, there's another interesting story out here in California with the farm Plenty. And for those of you that haven't heard of Plenty, Plenty is in South San Francisco. They'll be expanding to the Los Angeles area this year. In fact, they already are. And there's public news that they've just signed a $150 million collaboration deal with Driscoll's, which is a global berry company, focusing on how to grow berries indoors, which again, in terms of what we were talking about earlier with FAR, is really kind of the moonshot in terms of, number one, being able to grow indoors, but number two, the unit economics and how the unit economics play into that kind of thing. But with the last 4 or 5 minutes here, Stacy, and I want to give the guys 10 minutes for questions. Data is huge, and clearly we've talked a little bit about data. It's certainly public that AeroFarms is with Dell EMC in terms of some of your technology and throwing a rope around the many, many data points that you guys are involved with. Can you tell me how that data and the data that you see and that you get and your team gets, how does that sort of formulate your R&D decisions, and what kind of outcomes, obviously, are you looking for with the data that you have today?
Yeah, so that's correct. We are working with Dell EMC, and I think they've allowed us to get systems in place to really capture as much data as we possibly can in our farm in Newark. So, the way we think about data in my organization, we have data scientists. Our lead data scientist is actually a plant scientist as well, which is really important because, data science for data science sake is interesting, but data science with the overlay of the understanding of plant biology really helps us, because we can say, you can get numbers, but unless they're practically usable in a biological environment, it's not very helpful. So what we do is we use the data for a couple of things. So we are monitoring our farm all the time to see what's going on in that farm. So obviously we have a controlled environment, and occasionally, we'll see something interesting with a plant going on in a particular area of the farm. We'll say, what's going on there? We have all this data, let's take a look. And could we use that data to help us understand how, if that thing that was happening was really exciting, we got great yield for some reason, what was happening in that area that we might be able to replicate? Or maybe we had an interesting event or other things that, we wanted to continue to do or wanted to expand on. We can use the data as a reason to show that this is really something important to us, that it's not just an observation. The data supports that. So we have growers in our farms, and they are observing the plants all the time. But what we use the data for is they may see something, and we say, let's look at the data to see how we understand more of what you're seeing visually with the plants, and see if we can figure out what's going on there, because that could be really interesting for us from a research point of view. So, we also use it to think about how we might get particular conditions for particular plants. And if we have a particular plant that likes certain type of conditions, the data can tell us how the plant is doing and whether or not we're really hitting the mark and giving it the best environment that it wants.
Thank you for that. So we've got just 1 minute more, and then we're going to turn it over to Cole for some questions. I have to do a disclaimer, is that I was not the organizer of ASTA, the American Seed Trade Association event. Rather, I was a speaker there. I am involved with Indoor AgCon, and I have to do a shout out to your CEO, David Rosenberg, who will be our keynote speaker for the October event in Orlando, Florida, fingers crossed we can all come together again. And having said that, I have one final question for you, Dr. Kimmel, and I'm going to pose it to you in this way. I'm in Southern California. I am 1 hour from Hollywood. Can you or can you not get me tickets?
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
You cannot get me tickets?
I am not related to Jimmy Kimmel. It's funny, I get asked that question occasionally. The first time I was asked, I was really thrown because I don't think I was kind of early days with his show. And I was at my dry cleaner of all places. And the guy who was giving my dry cleaner and he's asked my name. He's like, "Are you related to Jimmy?" I said, "Who? Who's that?" This was like 10 years ago. And I said, no, I'm not. And if you're in the Philadelphia area, I'm not related to any of the Kimmels either that are their names splashed on every building in the city of Philadelphia, not related to any of them either. So I live here and I see my name everywhere. So it's kind of fun.
Okay. Well, thank you. I wanted to pose it that way because I'm sure you said it. Before I turn it over to you, Cole, I just want to do one more little Pennsylvania shout out in terms of what's happening with indoor vertical farming in Pennsylvania for the students and listeners who aren't aware. So I'm just going to say real quickly here, I hope you guys are aware of what's going on in Braddock with the 5th season. I hope you guys are aware of what's going on with a Wharton alumni, that's Dr. Eric Stein, and the Center of Excellence for Indoor Ag, founded in Philly in 2019. I want you guys to also be aware of what's happening at Harrisburg U with my friend Ian Kansky. Ian is actually the chairman for the Farm Tech Society, and at Harrisburg, he is the director of the Center for Agricultural Research. And then final shout out is Michael Gutman, the director of Sustainable Development at Kennett Township, which you all know is the mushroom capital of the United States. So there's a lot of great things happening in Pennsylvania. I'm so stoked and happy to be here. Thank you very much. And Cole, do some questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for helping moderate. We have lots of questions in the chat, so we'll try and get through as many of them as possible. Again, use the Q&A function if you have more questions to go. So the first question, and again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, is from Neo. And they ask, where do you see vertical farms fit in local food systems in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think vertical farms are fitting in local food systems now. And I think that's what's really exciting about them. And, we are only miles away from many of the consumers that buy our products. And I think what you'll continue to see is the range of distribution around vertical farms will continue to be local, because that's a really important thing for us. A lot of our produce, I should say all of it, but a lot of our produce is moved from California or other parts of the world even to where you buy it in the grocery store. So this type of technology allows us to grow as close as possible to the consumer, and you're going to get fresher product as a result of it. It doesn't have to be picked early and ripen along the way. It doesn't have to be bred to survive, long trucking routes. It is the best, tenderest, sweetest produce because we can ship it to you the next day and you can buy it the next day.
Awesome. And I think that, level of localized agriculture is also very cool for a lot of people like us in West Philadelphia. It's hard for us to get students connected to agriculture sometimes because we have to get in a car and drive north or west. And I think it's a great way to connect people in the cities to agriculture themselves.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of companies that are very focused on cities as their location. We are obviously in Newark, but there's another handful of companies that are also focusing on city environments and trying to not just provide produce, but provide jobs. And try to, reinvigorate neighborhoods and other types of things, which is a great a thing for any company to be able to do and still sell product and make money. So that's the sweet spot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, our next question comes from Leslie, and she writes, there are several indoor growing wall companies now in the market. What is going to make the difference in those to become successful in the next 3 to 5 years? Whether commercial or residential, to differentiate themselves in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are many ways to grow indoors. AeroFarms has a way that we grow aeroponically on cloth, and there are other companies that grow using different technologies. I think we use a fine mist of water. Some companies are using a hydroponic environment. I think there's space for all different ways of growing, and I suspect this is just me talking, that you'll find that many companies will evolve and have multiple ways of growing over time, because there's so much runway for design of growing equipment in this space that what we're trying to do is figure out how to get the best and the most plants to our consumers. So any way that we could potentially design a system to do that, we will do it. And that system isn't a one-size-fits-all situation always. So you might find that multiple different types of systems are required depending on what kinds of plants you're growing, or depending on where you want to locate them, how much space you have. So there's a lot of different considerations. And I think I think they all work, and they all work well, depending on what you're trying to do. And there's room for many different types of systems.
Great. I'll keep going because we have a lot of questions. Luke, I believe, asked, how do we access the cafes? I think he's referencing the cafes.
Yeah, sure. I think if you Google Optima, Optima Indoor Ag Cafe, and probably put Ohio State University in there somewhere, you will find them. They're all recorded on YouTube, and you should be able to grab them and watch them.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. It may be Optima IA, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's Optima IA. You're correct. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. I highly recommend watching them. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, it sounds like great, and we'll definitely try and do that as our club too with our members. So I think.
There you go. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah, and then we have a couple questions about kind of the energy consumption of indoor farms. I believe it's Yi. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Talks about a recent Bloomberg article that says vertical farms require high energy consumption and it costs 20 to 30% more than traditional farming. Can you explain about the energy efficiency of vertical farming and or share any ongoing or potential technological improvements regarding this issue?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that adds to energy costs in indoor farming is lighting. So, it's an evolution related to lighting. So 10 years ago, 5 years ago, the lighting technology was not as good as it is now. And it's going to continue to get better. So, this is the typical type of runway you would see with a new technology, is that the more you learn, the better you get. And I think we will expect that the LED lighting is going to get better and better and better, and there will be less energy used from those lights. And part of what we're doing, as I mentioned in R&D, is looking at different spectra. So different spectra also use different amounts of energy. So if you can optimize plant growth with a low energy spectrum, you're doing a couple of things there. You're getting better plants, healthier plants, but you're also using less energy. So a lot of that is related to lighting technology and how far lighting technology has come, and still room to go. So we are always looking at lighting. Roger Bueller, who you mentioned, Jim, is our lighting guru. The guy is like a genius when it comes to lighting, and he's been in the lighting industry for years before he joined AeroFarms. And he designs a lot of amazing lights for AeroFarms that help us reduce our energy consumption. And it's really important for us to become profitable over the long term to continue to reduce that cost.
Awesome. And I think that answered several questions kind of related to the environmental sustainability aspect as well as the ongoing technology. I have another couple of questions that I'll lump together here about the viability of using indoor and especially vertical farming for crops such as wheat and corn, crops that are usually seen on, massive tracts of land and acres upon acres. Do you ever see that reaching, economically viable scale, or is it always going to stay towards more, microgreens or lettuce or vegetables?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more than microgreens and leafy greens. I think you're going to start to see different plants growing in these indoor environments. Whether you'll ever see corn and wheat if I had to speculate, I'd say unlikely. You know, a lot of what we do, and if you get a chance to watch the Indoor Ag Cafe, there's a cafe that was Bruce Bugbee presented. And Bruce Bugbee is one of the lighting gurus in the industry. And he talks a lot about the equation of, you know, how lighting use and plant biomass, and how you actually can determine whether it's even worth growing something in an indoor farm. And of course, that equation is changing all the time because lighting is getting more and more efficient. But it's a really good way mathematically to take a look at whether it even makes sense to grow some of these things in an indoor farm. So you can imagine that a leafy green or lettuce, the lion's share of the biomass is consumed. So it makes a lot of sense. You've got high biomass and less waste. But something like corn, there's a ton of waste and, you know, a little bit of product consumed based on how much light it would actually take and energy it would actually take to grow that corn. Long growing cycles, all these kinds of things. There's some really interesting math that you can do to take a look at different crops if you understand the pricing and those kinds of things, just market prices. It's really a great one if you get a chance to watch it.
Awesome, awesome. And now I'm going to do one more question. I don't want to cut into the next panel too much. And this is, would vertical farming be dominated by small facility growing containers, or like as in containers, or are we looking at skyscrapers? You know, kind of give us the maybe 20, 30-year picture of what can we expect to see for vertical farming?
Yeah, I mean, my thinking on that is you may see a little bit of a hybrid model. So you may see things that, I don't know necessarily about containers as we think of them today, like a shipping container. Certainly that's very useful in certain situations. But if you think about a large indoor farm, you could imagine maybe you want some spaces that are contained. And then you want some spaces that are more open so that you can maybe have multiple environments in one farm. So when I think of the word container, I'm not necessarily thinking of a box. I'm thinking of different growing environments within the same farm. As far as how far you can go up, I think that is, you know, could be as far as you want potentially. As automation and robotics advance, and you're not sending a human up, 6 stories to pull off leafy greens so they can be harvested. To me, it doesn't seem like there would be a whole lot preventing you from going up, as long as you can make sure you've got the right atmosphere at all levels of that farm, however big it is.
Awesome. Awesome. What a great picture of kind of the future of indoor and vertical farming for us. Want to say a big thank you both to you and Jim again for being our keynote speaker for this event. It's really, really cool to hear all about the future of agriculture, and we're really excited all the work that you're doing and hope to stay in touch. So thank you again.
Likewise. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.